I'm so sorry. We were having technical difficulties. I'm having a conversation with Dr. Lee Savio Beers. She is head of the American Academy of Pediatrics, and she's talking to us about vaccines and kids. And I just want to make sure that you all are getting the information you need about getting your kids vaccinated. So let me just go back to American Academy. We had some technical problems, and let's just see if we can do this again. I'm sending a request to the American Academy, and there you go. Dr. Beers was just giving us, hi everybody, hi Jody, hi everyone. We're talking to the head of the American Academy of Pediatrics about kids and the vaccine, because I have some friends who have kids and they want to know they're not available, or some of the vaccines haven't been available to kids they're in their age group. So hi Cameron Watson. I would add you, but I'm actually waiting to talk. Can you meet Amanda Seyfried? Sure, call her. I don't know. I'm not her agent. I think she's great. Anyway, I just thought this would be really helpful to get some information, and I don't know what's going on. Let me see if I can get her back here, you guys. If not, we may have to do this another time. American Academy of Pediatrics. Here she is. She's unable to join. Well, shoot. I'm going to do another request. My daughter's saying, hey. There you are. Hi, Dr. Beers.
Hello. Am I back now?
So sorry. We were having technical difficulties, and I'm really
Oh,
about that. But thank you for putting up with the technical problems. My daughter is texting me at the same time, asking me if I can FaceTime later. Yes, Carrie. Let me just have a conversation with Dr. Beers first. Okay.
that sounds great. And I'm sorry, it may well have been on my end.
Oh,
Who knows? I had to get tech support from my teenage daughter to get on. So
not worry. And thanks everybody for joining us. And this is Dr. Lee Savio Beers, president of the American Academy of Pediatrics, obviously a pediatrician herself and a mom of some kids. And so Dr. Beers, do you think there is enough data on the impact or the effect of the vaccine itself on kids, say 20 and under?
So I think we do for kids 12 and up, which is the age group for which the vaccine is authorized. And I actually feel really quite confident in the data. In addition to the clinical trials, we actually also know that there have been actually millions of adolescents, young adults, and adults nationwide who have been vaccinated. And so, I do feel very confident. I feel confident enough in it that my own kids have actually gotten the vaccine.
Well, Pfizer, which is currently conducting clinical trials with kids as young as 6 months old, will likely seek an emergency use authorization for vaccinating kids between the ages of 10 to 11 in September. I have a friend who I hope is watching, my friend Lauren Osborne, and she has 3 kids. And I think they're all under 12, right, Lauren? But anyway, she's wondering why the vaccine isn't available now, because a lot of these kids are being told they need to go back to school in September, and yet the vaccine isn't available. So what do you advise parents who are in that situation?
Yeah. Well, and it's a really good question, a really good point to bring up. And part of the reason the vaccine isn't available for that age group yet is because we're still looking at the data. And I think it just highlights how careful and cautious the FDA and the CDC are being about the data. We don't want to rush into it, right? We want to make sure we have a good understanding of the data, and so that's why we don't have 10 and 11 yet. I agree, hopeful for the fall, and for parents of the younger kids, it's so hard, and I know we're all so eager, but I advise really keep on doing the things you're doing, wearing masks, and being a little bit extra cautious about indoor gatherings and physical distancing and hand washing, and just know that the vaccine is on the horizon, and so we're almost there. So just hang in for a little bit.
I know that's easier said than done when you have little kids and you're really get them back to school and to a normal routine. So do you think there's a chance that the vaccine will be available maybe a bit earlier, say in August. People are making rude comments. It's okay. People say get rid of the comments. Instagram Live is a very interesting platform. I keep the comments up because I also think there are people who have some important questions, and I want to be available to, ask you those questions on their behalf. So let me just get to Dr. Beer, some of the questions that people are top of mind for folks. Will kids experience the same vaccine side effects as adults? I mean, anecdotally, a lot of my friends who got the Moderna vaccine, the second shot, this was really tough for them. And so what about, for kids? What are you hearing about side effects from the actual vaccine?
Yeah, pretty similar to adults actually, in that, lots of people actually don't have any side effects. I've heard from lots of people who say, yeah, my
Oh no.
like your friends who, had, I think, oh, there you go. You were freezing on me for a second there.
Go ahead. You were saying.
Yeah. So, and some people who are a little more tired, a little more achy for a couple of days afterwards, and it's pretty similar in kids. Again, I can speak from my own kids' experience. My daughter's had 2 shots now. She's 16 and my son's 12. He's had his first dose, and both of them, their arm was a little sore afterwards, but they were still doing just fine. They both went to soccer practice and track practice and soccer tryouts and all sorts of other stuff right afterwards. And so really, really did okay with it. So it's pretty similar to adults. And for sure, a couple of days of achiness is just significantly better than actually getting COVID infection.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. How effective are the vaccines in children?
They're incredibly effective, actually. I mean, I think this has been just one of the things that we were so encouraged by. You may remember early on, before we really, before the vaccines were fully ready, we said, boy, we'd be happy if these vaccines have 50 or 60% efficacy, right? If they work 50 to 60% of the time. And now we've got vaccines that are, 95 to 100% effective. And so that I think is just really exciting and encouraging, and something that we should all feel really good about.
Someone is asking, how many children were studied in clinical trials and for how long?
Yeah, it's a great question. And to talk, the way that the trials work actually is that we do what are called, and this is, I won't get too deep into it, I promise, but they're called age de-escalation trials. And so they do, the bulk of the biggest part of the trial, where you want to really test the safety and everything in adults first, because, we know we want to be extra cautious with kids. And so then after you really demonstrated the safety and efficacy in adults, and we know actually we have all this experience in adults, we then look at a smaller group of kids to see, is it still working the same way in kids as it is in adults? And we would expect that actually it would, especially teenagers, because we would expect that it would. And so the trials are really designed to really test and make sure, is the vaccine working the same way in kids as it is in adults? So that's why the trials are worked that way. Now, when we get to the littler kids, they're going to start doing the trials are testing smaller doses and things like that to see what's needed for those littler kids.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Is the dosage amount titrated for younger children who weigh less? And how is that determined? Is it determined by weight, by age? How?
Yeah, so for the teens right now, the 12 and up, it's the same dose, because that was one of the things they determined during the trials, was that it works just, it's working the same in adults as it does, or in these teenagers as it does in adults. For the younger kids, the way they're looking at the trials is they're testing different doses, and they're looking to see, does the same dose, work, and does it have the same kind of side effects, or can we do it with a smaller amount, as a smaller amount, the right dose? So we don't know the answer to that yet for the younger kids. That's part of what the data is going to show us through the clinical trials. And it's part of why we just, as eager as we are, we have to really be patient with the data to make sure that we really have the best information for our kids.
And so again, someone I think didn't hear or didn't feel like you answered the question about how many kids were studied. Do you know an exact number in the trials?
Gosh, I could pull it, if I had my other laptop up here, I could pull out the an exact number. That one isn't at the top of my head. But I think the important thing to know, and we've been really in touch with, all of our experts and our experts across the Academy of Pediatrics, as well as across the whole field of infectious disease, that, the number of kids enrolled in the trials and the number, the way the trials were conducted, we're following all the same kind of protocols that we always follow with vaccines and with other medications. And so really sort of following the exact same protocols that we always do. We didn't make modifications for this particular circumstance.
Yeah, I wonder if there could be someone I could talk to who could specifically talk about how the data was gathered.
Yeah.
That is something that families want to know more about and are concerned about and feel like they should do their due diligence. But I'm sure that these scientists are being extremely careful about, making sure that this is effective for children.
And we definitely have people we can work with you. We've got our whole team of infectious disease experts. We could definitely connect you with them.
I would love it. Really wonderful. Someone is at here. These are just questions that we got. What about lasting side effects from the vaccine on things like puberty and menstruation? I know that there were some anecdotal reports about that. Can you tell us the latest on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Really through all these studies and these trials, the vaccines have been shown to be very safe and effective. And one of the things that we know, it's funny, right? I think that the general public, we're all thinking so much more about vaccine trials than anyone ever has, right? It's not something people gave a lot of thought to before. But what we know from, every single vaccine we've ever studied, essentially, is that the side effects that came out of it, you saw those side effects within 6 to 8 weeks. There really hasn't been a vaccine where the side effects came out, many years later. And so we, that gives us a lot of confidence that what we're seeing, that being, really, being able to sort of monitor kids and monitor adults and see what's happened after 6 to 8 weeks gives us a really good picture. And so we have no concern for any of the long-term side effects. We know there's been some misperceptions out in the media, and it's real easy for misinformation to get shared. It's really easy for misinformation to get shared. We're not there's no evidence at all that any of these impacts that are out there, the things about puberty and other stuff, there's no evidence at all that any of that is anything for us to worry about or is something that we would see.
Someone asked, were some of the kids in the trial, did they include kids who have things like asthma, seasonal allergies? In other words, is there a cross section of kids with certain conditions so that if they do have these conditions, parents can feel that it's safe to get them vaccinated?
Yeah, they definitely did. And actually, they were really attentive to that, actually looking at kids with different medical conditions, but also kids from different areas of the country, from different races, ethnicities, backgrounds. And so the trials were really attentive to that so that we could really feel confident that the vaccine is safe and effective at a wide group of kids, and that we could all feel comfortable and confident in that.
Okay. By the way, I'm talking to Lisa Beer. She's the president of the American Academy of Pediatrics, and she's just answering some questions about children and the vaccine, which I thought would be useful for a lot of you who have kids out there and you just are either waiting for the vaccine to become available or you may have some trepidation about your kids. Here's some questions from social media, Dr. Beers. For those of us with kids under 2, when can we realistically expect the vaccine to become available? This person says, feels like we're in limbo. Masks are not recommended or easy to explain for that age group, but they can't get vaccinated either. So that is very hard for these little bitty kids. When do you think that the kids under 2 will be able to get vaccinated? Because we did hear about some cases where babies got COVID and it's very scary.
Yeah, it is scary, you know, again, just you know, really, you know, sharing. I understand that it is difficult with the little kids and not knowing for sure when we may have a vaccine available for them. You know, to take this with a grain of salt. I'm predicting a little bit because we don't know, because we really have to make sure we're taking this step by step and looking at the data, you know, and looking at how the trials do, because we don't want to rush it. You know, I think everything that we've been hearing, and you know, stuff that folks have said is probably, you know, maybe the beginning of next year would be a time that would be reasonable to think the vaccine might be available for the little ones. But again, we have to take it step by step. And in the meantime, you know, just again, really reassuring parents of the younger kids, you know, that there will be an end in sight. It's hard when you see everybody else getting the vaccines and you know your little ones can't get it yet. And so just knowing there is an end in sight, you know, keep on with the masking, you know, for others in your family, especially when the little ones can't do it, and just really, and I think for all of us actually, you know, being mindful of the fact that there are little ones around us who aren't eligible for the vaccine yet, and so, you know, making sure that we're careful and we're wearing our masks when we need to in these sort of tight spaces, and just, you know, that we're looking out for those little ones around us too.
Well, I'm assuming that the adults and even the teenagers around these young children, toddlers and
Yeah,
younger, if they're vaccinated, that does
yeah,
provide a degree of security for the children,
yeah.
correct?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. You know, and it's funny, we talk about that actually with other vaccines as well. You know, for newborns who are too young to get really any vaccine, or the little ones who aren't old enough for the flu vaccine, we call it cocooning. So you can create a little cocoon around your little ones, by making sure everyone else around them is vaccinated.
Someone is saying they're having trouble convincing his or her 18-year-old to get vaccinated. Um, you know, what do you advise parents who are being met with some
Yeah.
resistance from their kids, especially teenage kids?
You know, I think the first thing is to ask them what their concerns are so that you can really dive in. I mean, it's why it's sort of great that we're having this conversation today to, you know, answer questions and really encourage folks. You know, I'm sure lots of people listening have really specific questions, and talk to your pediatrician about those. You know, dive into those, like, what about this number? What about that number? What about this side effect I'm hearing about? So that's the first thing, is just find out what the concern is. What are the reasons that they feel hesitant? I think, you know, for my own kids, the things that really made them want to be vaccinated were, one, knowing that they were protecting themselves and that they could just more carefully and, you know, without worry, do all the things that they love doing, that they don't have to worry about being one of those kids who does happen to get a severe case of COVID. So that's one thing. The other thing for both of them is that they really felt, you know, they knew they were protecting their community too. The more of us who are vaccinated, the less the virus will spread, and the more we're taking care of each other. So that was important to them too, to know that they were helping their community.
A lot of people, not a lot, but a few I noticed on the comments, and we got this through social, about the risk of heart disease,
Mhm.
myocarditis, and pericarditis in children post-vaccine. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the first point to make here is that, again, I mentioned this earlier, this is a really good example of our systems working the way they're supposed to, right? You know, from what we see now, and the information we see now. So myocarditis is a sort of mild inflammation around the heart muscle, and it's usually mild, but it can get more severe. So, and you know, it's something that we actually see in kids, and right now we're not seeing any more cases of myocarditis in vaccinated kids than we would in the general population, right? And so, but and it's been very rare cases, but I think that what's important here is that our systems are working exactly the way they should be. You know, right now we don't think there's a connection. The data is not showing that there's a connection, but we're looking at those cases and we're watching it very carefully to make sure that if there's, you know, if there's anything that peaks up that makes us think differently, we can immediately jump into action. You know, and again, it's just a sign that our systems are working the way they are to pick up even things that you know, right now look like just kind of coincidence, right? That there's a number of kids who get this illness this time of year, and just coincidence, but it's a sign our systems are working the way that they should, that we know about it and that we're monitoring it carefully.
And what about vaccine supplies? People are asking, where can they get vaccinated, and
Mhm.
when will the supply meet the demand for some of these younger kids, or for
Yeah.
teenagers to toddlers, really?
Yeah, that's going to vary a little bit depending on where you live, right? Some places, that you can get it pretty easily. Some you may have to drive a little bit, but the supply is pretty good right now, actually. And so, what I actually recommend is just give your pediatrician a call and say, hey, we're interested. Where can we get it? Can we come to your office? A lot of pediatricians are starting to get it in their office, so that you can get it there. Or it may be that there's a mass vaccination site you can go to, or the local children's hospital, but it's going to vary depending on where you live. So I think the best thing to do is really call your pediatrician and say, we're really interested, and where's the best place for us to get it around here.
Well, these kids, and for adults for that matter, as far as you know, need a booster shot. And people are asking, how long does the immunity last?
Yeah. Yeah, we don't know yet how long the immunity will last. It's, so far seems to be doing really well. I think when we talk to our infectious disease experts, they say, this is a crystal ball here, because we're really, we're looking into the future a little bit. But I think most people think a booster shot will probably be needed, whether it's in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. I don't think we know that yet. But we'll be, again, continuing to watch that very carefully. And that's part of what the study participants are helping us with is they're still going in for regular blood draws and all that sort of thing, so that we know what the immune levels are, and keeping an eye on them.
Someone's asking, if you have a kid who has tons of allergies, should
Mm-hmm.
that parent be worried about any kind of reaction to the vaccine?
Yeah, I actually just got this question from a friend of mine less than a week ago, I think. And actually, the only thing you would have to be worried about is if your child was allergic to one of the components of the vaccine. The allergy experts and the CDC, say that if your child has other allergies, you can safely get the vaccine. And also, I would also say this is, again, one of these circumstances where if you have questions, call and talk to your pediatrician about it. They'll know exactly what your allergies are. They can double check it, make sure it's not something that cross reacts with the vaccine, which would be a pretty rare circumstance, actually. But call your pediatrician and talk to them about it, and just make sure that you feel comfortable in your decision.
Or, someone saying that the New York Times released a blurb about heart issue connected with the vaccination. Are there some specific groups other than immune suppressed that are more likely to be impacted than others with adverse reactions? I think if you have any pre-existing condition, the best thing to do, Dr. Beers, is to talk to your doctor
Mm-hmm.
about
Definitely.
any kind of side effects, because we don't want to give people inaccurate information. I think if your child has heart issues, you should talk to your pediatrician, because some of this information is becoming available. And I would hate for anyone to get inaccurate information from an Instagram live.
Yeah,
They need to really
exactly.
talk to their specific
Yeah.
doctor, especially, as
Yeah.
I said, if they have any pre-existing conditions. So
Yeah.
please, all, talk to your doctor. And as much as
Yeah.
Dr. Beers knows a lot about children and the vaccine, if you have any concerns whatsoever, please contact your doctor.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are asking about this myocarditis.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if they're concerned, this is something that they really need to look into more carefully for themselves and to protect them and their children, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's the case for this particular question, but for any question that you have about the vaccine, it's pediatricians have been, we've been kind of waiting for this time for a little while now. We're eager for our patients to be able to be vaccinated, because we want them to be healthy and get back to it. So our pediatricians are ready to answer the questions. And I agree with you. Instagram Live, you can't have that back and forth. Like, well, I say one thing and then you have a question about what I say, so that you ask me back. Can you clarify that? And that's what that you can do with your pediatrician, because it's I understand, right? I'm a parent too. And I certainly, before I got the vaccine, asked questions, and you want to understand it. And you want to understand all the nuances when you're making medical decisions for your kids. So if you have questions, talk to your pediatrician and talk through all of that.
Or to your
Yeah.
doctor if you have a
Yeah.
question. for yourself as an adult, if there's any history. Everyone's different. And so we want you to make the best decision. First of all, vaccination is, for the most part safe. But if you have any concerns, I think vaccinations are safe. The data has been done. I trust the science. But if you have a particular situation, I can understand why you might want to have more information. And I'm not. So somebody is asking if their 3 and 6-year-old can play outside without masks if they're playing with other children. Because, that's something I'm sure a lot of parents want to let their kids play outside. A really rough year for young kids. What would you recommend for those folks?
Well, first, I definitely agree. It's important for kids to be playing with each other and getting that social interaction. If given that the other kids are also unvaccinated, as because of their age, I would still recommend wearing masks when they're playing together. Outside is definitely safer, for sure than inside. But for anyone who's unvaccinated, I still recommend, especially kids playing together. They're going to be they're not going to stay 3 to 6 feet apart. So definitely still recommend masks. And I can say even, again, my own kids are a little bit older, but aren't quite at the end of being fully vaccinated yet. They're close, and they're still wearing their masks when they're, with their friends inside or outside, when they're in school, all that other kind of stuff. So it is, I know we're really ready. I know we're really ready, but I definitely recommend keeping the masks on. But finding ways for kids to get together and do those things that they really need to do to be kids.
Somebody is saying that they'd feel more comfortable if they were able to get their children vaccinated at the pediatrician. Will you all start being able to provide vaccines to these kids? Because it's a lot less. First of all, when I was a little kid, I used to hide behind the chairs in the waiting room because I hated shots. Still do. But our pediatrician's going to be able to administer the vaccine, because I think it would be a lot of kids and their families.
Yes, definitely. And many already are, actually. This is one of the great things about this job. I get to talk to pediatricians all across the country, and just all across the country, I'm hearing from pediatricians who actually, some of them have been giving vaccines even to adults. They've been working with their communities and agreeing to be vaccine sites for adults too. So some of them have even been doing it for a little while now, but yeah, lots and lots of them are. And actually there's been some nice changes in terms of sort of like the number of vaccines that can get delivered to an office and things like that are making it even easier for pediatricians' offices to do it. So yes, absolutely. Not everyone's doing it quite yet, because for some people they have to be able to sort of get the right refrigerator or freezer and all of that kind of stuff. But lots of them are. So definitely call your pediatrician, because lots of them are and or have plans to do it pretty soon.
And is there a resource that people can go to kind of get the latest data and the information if they just want to do their own digging before they get their child vaccinated, or before, if they just want the latest information on how the data was gathered, et cetera?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think two key places I'd recommend to you. One, American Academy of Pediatrics has a great website for families called healthychildren.org. And we have been just really, really actively putting new content on there all the time about the COVID infection and vaccines and masking and all of that. And every time, like the myocarditis, anytime something new comes up that we think parents might have a question about, we go straight to our most expert members, and we put together information for families on that website. So that's one really good place.
Healthychildren.org.
Yes, healthychildren.org. Exactly. And the other place is the CDC website, especially, for folks who may have some of these really specific questions about, how many participants, why that many participants, what was the breakdown. That's another place where you can go and really get that detailed information, because it has been very transparent. And CDC and FDA, they want you to look at it. So.
Well, Dr. Lee Savio Beers, so nice to meet you, Dr. Beers. Where, by the way?
I'm sorry?
Where are you? Where do you practice?
Oh, I'm in Washington, D.C. actually.
Oh,
so yeah.
My pediatrician was in Washington, D.C. too. Celessa. I loved him. And
that's
I
wonderful.
grew up right outside of D.C. and I was super kid when I was 7 years old. No could figure out what was wrong with me. In the whole hospital, I couldn't hold down any food.
Oh,
I went to see Dr. Scalessa, and guess what he told me?
right.
You need to have your tonsils out.
Oh,
Were infected. They were dripping into my stomach and making me
oh,
throw up all the time. I just wanted to share that with everyone. I'm sure they find
oh,
it fascinating. But Dr. Beers, thank you for this. And I'm definitely
of
going to
course.
let people know about the
Yeah.
healthychild.org.
Healthychildren.org.
Okay,
Yeah.
my peer is here to help me remember. Healthychildren.org. So if they
Yeah.
need more information, and because it's a scary time for families and for kids, and
Yeah.
the more information, the better. Thank you,
Yeah.
Dr. Beers.
Of course. My pleasure. Anytime.
And have a great Memorial Day, and really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Great. Thank you. You too.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.